Suffering is an essential ingredient of this complete universe and life. Ignoring, no way it's gonna come back. Running away from it, impossible. The pain is running faster. The suffering runs faster than you. It's gonna come back again. There's only one way, I really think it is. You need to push through. I know what I want, but when the suffering comes and now somebody tells me you need to push through, do you have the mental, do you have the physical abilities to push through? And if you say no, well, then we need to develop them. Suffering is your chance to grow. For you, for us to grow, we have to suffer. The seriousness that you put in regards to yourself, to really push yourself and use that method to change something about you, this is completely up to you. Nobody knows when inside of you the struggle starts. And then when that point comes where still out of nothing or wherever it comes, still suddenly, based on your thoughts, based on whatever you are creating in the mind or whatever, suddenly the last piece also comes out. So this is like something like an internal force. I think it's something really special to discover something that the human can do this. You must take your life into your hands. This is how also then I just started shifting. Meaning I didn't regard suffering as something bad anymore that I don't want to have, let's say. Yeah. Meanwhile, it is like the suffering comes because either I was not properly prepared enough, because I'm still missing something, I'm still missing a hint, whatever, but it is the chance for me to discover something more about me. And this is actually what always has motivated me. That is not gonna get boring when you take it as a life challenge, as a life purpose. Find a way to end the suffering. If you need a life purpose, that's the one. So of course, I am interested to know how can I make the period shorter of the suffering, or how can I accelerate that the suffering starts to transform and I would return back to another state. And therefore training has for many years has always been my valve. You can't sit still for 5 minutes. Let's start with 2. Okay? The 2 are okay. Okay, let's move up 3 minutes. Move up 5 minutes, move up 10 minutes. Okay, now your mind can be still for 10 minutes. Let's increase the pressure on you. Instead of just sitting like silently, nothing moving, let's give you more disturbance, which means this time we go into a horse stance. So now let's start again. Try 10 minutes to not think about the suffering, to think about the pain, to let the pain and the shaking and the burning, to not let it disturb you. Now we have created a new circumstance in order for you to test how did your 10 minutes ability to keep the mind steady can now be applied to the moment of that additional pressure. And then we expand this all to now the real life pressure that comes when unexpected things hit your life. There it is the same. How much, for how long can you maintain your unbroken state? Okay? And this is the practice. This is where it leads to. Yeah? So if you suffer because of your own life, because your own one-way street, yeah, why? Well, then go out of that one-way street. There are many other pathways. There are so many people just left from you, right from you, in your street, in your neighborhood. If you would just find a way to connect to them, life's not going to get boring anymore. What matters to me is, at the moment, I feel that I have what I consider as this is lifetime. I can observe around, based on my actions, how this lifetime can feel for me. And I have decided for myself, I don't want to carry something along my daily life, which is like closing me down. I feel like the proper way, the more living aligned way is the one that opens up. It's the one that starts to connect more and more. Also like discovering more and more, even if I don't know something yet. Interestingly, to talk to you and diving into a world that I haven't seen before. It's the interesting fact. Why would I feel offended by this? My message therefore is, oh, okay, I'm already 40 years on this world. How come I missed that one? So that means this type of approach to actually, you constantly are in discovery mode. Yeah. You constantly are in saying, I know a few things quite well, but it doesn't stop. This is the general approach, what I consider as. It gives you purpose, it gives you sense, it fills up your day. Yeah, and this is what I consider. This is my life principle. I don't care as what somebody is identifying himself with, what type of teaching he's following. People come here, sometimes they're afraid the training is too hard, okay? It's not gonna be the exercise that I'm giving you, which is gonna be harder. I'm just gonna say we're gonna do push-ups right now. So now you can just like stand on the ground and your push-up is like this, okay? Your immersion into the exercise is quite low. But if you do just one push-up, really going down and feel everything under tension and then go up, so which means you are actually the one deciding how much effort, how much precision are you putting actually into that one exercise. That is what makes the difference. It is that fire that nourishes us to do things. Fire is the active part about us. And when somebody's asking me, how was it possible to build up all of these things? How come nowadays there's so much available about all these things? Well, then certainly laziness is not in there. You know? And why sometimes I look so serious when I do my training? Why are you always so serious? You can't achieve something seriously impactful if you're joking around and if you're losing your focus all the time and if nothing is important in a way to you, you know? So that means setting priorities, knowing when is the time to invest the energy, when it is the time to release energy, when is it good now to recover, when are you really feeling this is now starting to be the limit. These are all very, very fine aspects that only you know. Only you know about yourself. When you lift the weights, only you know. People outside watching, they don't know. If you're going through a struggle, if you're just warming up, they don't know. Suffering is your chance to grow. For you, for us to grow, we have to suffer.
What you fear establishes the boundaries of your freedom. And I was living in a self-contained prison, a self-made prison. So I decided to flip the script for myself, and I decided to use fear to my advantage. Whatever I was afraid of, I moved toward.
You need to decide what you want. You need to decide what you want to be remembered for. You need to decide what your legend will be.
Don't just ask once and don't just look for one option. Use fear to your advantage. And I just started doing that with everything. I was afraid of roller coasters, so I went on the fastest ones. You know, I was, if I was afraid of the dark, I would just dive into deep, dark places. And I was afraid of rejection, I would just go out and go ahead and ask. If I was afraid of failure, I would go and try. And by the time I was in my 20s, I had a reputation or being an insane risk taker. I mean, I would walk into projects with armed guards with Uzi machine guns in every entry, cocaine stacked to ceilings, and I would walk in and make contact with the owners of drug cartels and begin to talk to them about life and God. I think all of us are trying to, create a counterintuitive story. If we feel we were insignificant, we try to find significance and we try to give people significance, right? If we need to be healed and we find healing, then we try to heal other people. And for me, mine has always been, there's a heroic narrative inside of everyone. There's a hero inside of everyone waiting to be awakened. And the reason I know that is because I was a coward, but there was a hero inside of me. And when he woke up, he changed my life. I don't want to die with potential. And I thought, that's impossible unless you don't use any of your potential. And it just shrivels up and dies. I'm going to die with so much potential that on my tombstone, it's going to say, he had so much potential. Because whenever you use your potential, you end up with more. Whenever you use the potential intelligence, the potential talent, the potential skill, the potential essence of who you are, you get more. So you want to catch 22? If you use up more potential than anyone else, you're going to die with more potential than anyone else. So if your goal is to die having used all your potential, the only way you're going to do that is to shrivel up that potential by never using it. And so I'm going to die with more potential than any day before that moment. Because if you use it, it just keeps growing. And that for me is exciting. You can't be humble if you're insecure. I value humility as one of the highest virtues. You cannot be humble if you do not know your power. If you do not know your power, you're not humble, you're just afraid. You're not humble, you're just compliant. The only person that can be truly humble is the person that knows their strength and knows their power, then chooses it to serve, chooses to empower, not overpower.
You need to decide what you want. You need to decide what you want to be remembered for. You need to decide what your legend will be. Because the reality is that we do not know how long we're going to get to build the tower. We have no idea. You may think you know, but you do not know. You may think you have plenty of time to build the tower that is you, to build the tower that is your life. But the only day we know we have is the day we're in. And so as you build that tower, you need to decide what are the stones that you're placing in place to build that tower. What are you doing today? Who are you today? What are the choices you're making right now? Because that is actually the only indicator of the tower you're building, of the life you're building, of the future you're creating. Are you willing to pay the price for the life you say you want?
When you have strength and you're kind, that's where it perplexes the world. When you're not dangerous, you're not really safe, you're just weak. But when you have power and force and strength, and then you choose to use that power and force and strength to be meek and kind and compassionate, to me, that's what it means to be masculine. Like, more people were afraid of failure than success. And ironically, fewer people crumble under the weight of failure than crumble under the weight of success. And if you don't develop the internal infrastructure, the character base to handle great success, you will use all of that power and wealth, fame, whatever you have, for your own good. And you'll become basically a black hole where everything is being consumed by your desire, by your greed, by your lust. And everyone around you gets consumed by you rather than having everything around you actually flourish. I always perceived myself to be a coward. I felt like I was afraid of everything. And I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of getting bit by a dog. I was afraid of heights. You pick it. I was afraid of it. I always had this hope that one day I could wake up and not be me, that I could be a me that I could value and feel significant and love. And that kind of led me through a journey, graduated from high school, barely graduated, didn't go to college. I worked as a carpenter, lumberjack. I worked construction. I flipped burgers, flipped pizzas. I did everything that required no skill and no education. and just started wondering, is this all there is to life? And I was desperate. And then I was running across a highway at 19 years old. I graduated from high school at 17, so I finished early. And then when I was 19, I was running across a highway, got hit head on by a car, became paralyzed briefly from the waist down. And it was just one of those moments in my life where I'm feeling like my life is ending fast. And I didn't have even a perception of a future, which I think is the most dangerous place to be, when you can't imagine a better you or a better life or a better world. When you're small, you see life as all about things. And so it's toys. And then when you watch children play, they're all fighting over the same toy. There might be 20 toys, but the only toy that has value is the other toy that some kid has. And when you're small, you think life is about things. As you mature, you shift from things to experiences. You think life is all about experiences. It's the first kiss, your first date, your first, whatever football game, your first, goal. Everything is about experiences in life. And then if you mature, it moves from things to experiences to relationships. But the problem is a lot of people get older, but they never grow up. So they're still about things. It's just not Legos, it's Lamborghinis. Life is still about things. Or they grow to the adolescent stage where it's still about experiences. It's just not a first date. It's owning a yacht and a plane and traveling the world and going to Mars. And you just have to have another experience and another experience and another experience, because life is still all about experiences. But if you mature, you go from things to experiences to relationships.
And the question that I think all of us have to ask ourselves is, what kind of life do you actually want? You need to decide what you want. And one of the great challenges is that so oftentimes other people want a better life for you than you want for yourself. And you can be here in this space and we can talk to you all day and all night. We can do everything we can to build an infrastructure and a community to help you succeed. But if you do not decide what life you want, you will never have the life you want. You'll just have the life you can't. There have been people who have laughed at me in the past because they thought I had failed. They didn't know I wasn't finished.
But I think like my canvas is actually like the human spirit, that where I find my most tangible and rewarding works of art is when I see a person achieve their own personal greatness. And so as much as I love designing clothes and making films and writing books and having like artifacts that are in a sense expressions or proof of my creative essence, they pale in comparison to when I feel like, wow, I've helped someone find themselves and become like the best version of themselves. That to me is the work of artistry that is uniquely, I think, my space. As I sat down with a guy who, when he was 29, had his first $100 million company. And I think actually became a $1 billion company. And then he lost it all because his board fired him because he was such a jerk. And then he spent the next year rebuilding another $100 million company. So he's very good at what he does. And I'm at this event and I see him and we sit down together and we start a conversation. And I remember I looked at him and he asked me, what do you see? And I said, what I see is that you're going to die alone. You've made choices in your life where you do not allow anyone within the inner circle of who you really are. No one sees you, no one knows you. You communicate a message to everyone, stay away from me. And later on that day, another guy who was super successful came and said, hey, that guy told me you talked to him, that you slapped him around. And that night he said, I told my friends, I can't believe he talked to me this way. No one talks to me this way. And then a couple hours later, he came and said, what do I do? Say yes. Say yes to people who invite you into their lives. One of the things I've discovered is that people who are hyper successful become terrified of letting people into their life because they're not really sure if people love them or the benefit of being near them. And so if you don't develop the value of relationships early, it's almost impossible to develop them when you're successful. It's just like the person who says, I'll be generous when I'm rich, but right now I'm too poor to be generous. If you don't learn generosity when you're poor, you will never become generous when you're rich. Because I get the privilege of doing big things, and people think that's what makes you. But I feel like the only thing that earns me the right to be in the big stage is that I'm true to who I am in the small stage. I just think that if you have the capacity to create wealth, it's a lack of responsibility to not create it. Because people don't have the same capacity. There are people smarter than me, people more talented than me, people more gifted than me. And there are perhaps people I'm more gifted or more talented or more intelligent than. And you can't measure people equally. You have to take responsibility and stewardship for what you have. And somebody was born in Ethiopia. They do not have the opportunities that you have when you're born in Los Angeles. They might have the same intellectual capacity or talent, or innate capacity, but not have the opportunity. If you have the opportunity, to me, you have the responsibility. This guy graduated from UCLA, and when he graduated, he said, I don't know what to do now, and his parents spent so much money on his school. And I said, you mean, what do you mean? He goes, to pay the bills. I said, you just graduated from UCLA and your parents spent a few $100,000 to send you to school, and your entire motive in life is to pay the bills. You need to create a company that provides 1,000 people with jobs, so that you're providing 4,000 people with meals, so that all of these families have roofs over their heads and food on the table and an opportunity for them to live their greatest dreams. If you have the capacity, to me, you have the responsibility. Fame, like wealth, power, success, they're wonderful outcomes, but they're terrible intentions. Like when wealth is your intention, you will be empty. You'll never have enough. When fame is your intention, you will be a slave to the audience. You will live for the applause and die when you don't have it. And you will feel an incredible aloneness, because when you're by yourself, no one is celebrating you or applauding you. Those are the worst intentions: wealth, fame, power, position. When your intention is to do something meaningful in the world, when your intention is to become a human being that makes a positive and beautiful contribution to the world, nothing can destroy that. Somebody asked me about, how do you not lose your purpose when your business fails? And I said, your business should have never been your purpose. Your purpose should always be about the person you're becoming, not about the work you're doing. Yeah, my business failed, I'm still becoming. Didn't want to lose all that money. Would have been really nice if I made it, Would have liked to have been more successful in that arena, but it doesn't change who I am. It's just like, I spoke at this event a few years ago. It was really weird. It was a huge event, and I think they saw themselves as being like tastemakers, I guess. And after I spoke, they said, they asked me to do a podcast, so I went and did it, and they said, you've now spoken here. How are you handling this level of success? And I said, well, I thought I was successful before I got here until you told me that I wasn't. And I said, evidently I must have been living in the illusion. And I said, but let me tell you how powerful that illusion is. When I was working with 10 people who were all impoverished, I actually considered myself a success. When I was making $6,000 a year and serving people and living a meaningful life, I lived under the illusion that I was a success. When no one knew me, when no one ever invited me to speak anywhere, and no one ever signed me for a book, and no one ever paid me to speak at an event, I lived under the illusion that I was a success. So I was never trying to become a success. I already felt like one, and I was just moving toward it. And it's so much better to start from worth than trying to find worth. It's just so much. So I lived under the illusion that my life mattered, no matter what impact I made. And it was just a more wonderful illusion to live in. But someone the other day asked me, is it lonely at the top? And I said, if I'm at any top, I have more friends now than I've ever had in my entire life. But they're not the same friends. Because every time I had to elevate, I lost the people who were my friends at that different level of living, even though I tried to hold on to them. And I had to realize that the loneliness of growth is the transitions where you lose the people you had that you don't have yet, the people you will have. And I think the hard work of greatness, of achievement, of high success is taking the time to make sure that you always find that next community of people that will love you and celebrate you, that will cheer you on and make you better.
Adopt the posture of someone who is passionate. Explore what it would mean to be passionate about this. If no one's ever been passionate about it in the history of the world, then don't do that. But there are people who are passionate about emptying septic tanks, right? How efficient can they be? How clean can they be? How much can they explore on other topics in their head while their body's doing something else? But what would it feel like to be the best in the world at this, at least for a little bit? And the Reverend Martin Luther King said so many brilliant things, but one of the things he said is, not everyone's going to be able to, go do that dunk a basketball at the NBA Finals. Maybe you're a street sweeper, but if you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper.
It falls your lot to be a street sweeper. Sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Leontine Price sings before the Metropolitan Opera. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the host of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well.
The myth now, which every school kid knows, is Icarus and his dad Daedalus are on the island. They're stranded there. They make wings and they put them on their back, holding them on with wax, and they fly away. But before they fly away, Daedalus says to Icarus, don't fly too high. Don't get arrogant. Don't get uppity. If you fly too high, the wax will melt and you'll perish. And Icarus flies too high and he dies. And so the lesson is obvious. Listen to your dad, listen to the boss, do what you're told, fit in, don't get arrogant. But before the industrial age, the story also said, my son, do not fly too low, because if you fly too low, the mist will get in the feathers and it will weigh you down and you will perish. They took that part out because they wanted people to fly too low. They wanted people to settle. And so the argument I'm making is we have these magnificent tools that we've built at great cost to the environment and to other people. And we are wasting them doing stupid stuff like tweeting, when we could be building something important, but we are flying too low. Understand that it is extremely unlikely that you are right. It is very likely that you are interesting, but how can you be right about the future that isn't here yet? that what change is about inventing a new kind of future. That if the Wright brothers were still around and they didn't compromise, no one would be flying anywhere, because you can't fly in a Wright brothers plane. It only goes a couple hundred yards. They compromised with nature, they compromised with engineers, they compromised, et cetera, to get to a thing that worked. So there is a core change we seek to make, but we can't make that change without compromising with reality when it arises. That doesn't mean we're here to please everybody. If some people want to take us somewhere and others don't, we can just work with the people who want to go where we want to go. But reality demands that we recognize it. Reality says, I don't care how much you want something. It violates the laws of thermodynamics. You can't have it. All change involves tension. It's the tension of this might not work, the tension of what will other people say, the tension of this might work and then what will happen. So if I want to shoot a rubber band across the room, I pull it backwards before I let it go. If there is no tension, it doesn't go anywhere. We create tension when we establish the conditions for learning. We can't shy away from it. We have to see it. It's on there, right there on the table. Tension is going to be created. How will people deal with that tension? What about our peers? Affiliation. Who's to our left and who's to our right? What are we all doing? People like us do things like this. That you are defined by how your friends see the world because you have chosen them to be your friends. You're in that circle. So if you're in a group of 7 people and they're all angling to get into medical school, you are more likely to push yourself because you see the people you want to be in sync with pushing themselves. So when we create these conditions, it's not about obedience or compliance. It's about what's it like around here when we're in a learning culture. It's easier to be frustrated than it is to shift the circle of people that you're counting on. And if you don't want to be frustrated, start by shifting the circle of people. Tell me what happens after that. Tell me what happens when you start a mastermind group or a circle of people that you have to check in with just for 5 minutes every day online. For 10,000 years, human beings were only in groups of 150. That Dunbar's number is a real thing. That we are uncomfortable if there's more than 150 people in our Rolodex. There's only 150 people that match our brain's ability to really connect with. Well, that tribe has a lot of influence on us. You don't want to get kicked out of it, because in the old days, if you got kicked out of the village, the tiger would eat you. There's a lot of pressure to fit into that circle. But now, we have this freedom to either join a different circle or, even better, start one. And the idea of small world leadership is so powerful. Every big idea in our culture, every single one, started as a small group of people. 20, 30, 50 people who connected with each other, amplified it, and took it to the next level. And if that's giving them solace and satisfaction and connection, it's worth the bread. It's so easy to get hung up on self-belief because it seems unattainable and essential, and it's neither one. If you're a lifeguard and there's a dock with 6 lifeguards on it, and someone, God forbid, starts struggling in the water, drowning right in front of you, it would be accurate to say that you are not the best lifeguard in the world, maybe not even the best lifeguard on the dock, that you didn't do the best at your bronze medallion, and someone could do a better job than you. But you are the one who's standing right in front of that person. And if you jump in the water, you will save that person's life. That is a generous thing for you to do. I would like to think that most people in that situation would jump in the water. Well, this instinct to be a lifeguard is exactly what we're talking about when it comes to leadership. There are lonely people. There are uninformed people. There are people who need to be activated. There are people who want to be taught. You are standing right here on the dock. You are the single best person to do this generous act. I don't care whether you believe in yourself or not. What I care about is that you can do something generous right here and right now. Go do that. And once you do it, now you will know that you can do it, so you can do it again. When we're going to do something creative, something generous, something powerful, that voice shows up and says, better not. You can't make it go away. You can't make imposter syndrome go away. What you can do is dance with it. You can say thank you. You know, if you want to run the marathon, you can go get a coach. But you can't say to the coach, I would like to be able to run a marathon without getting tired. Because what comes with carrying a 220-pound stone is you get tired. That is the point. So the difference between someone who finishes the marathon and someone who stops at mile 20 is simple. The person who stops at mile 20 didn't know what to do with the tired. And the person who finishes did. You can't make the tired go away, but you can figure out what to do with it. And the same thing is true with our fear when it comes to leadership, when it comes to contribution. The fear's not going to go away, but you can say thank you, put it in a useful place. I have all these tools in front of me. Yeah, it's not, you know, there's too much social injustice and I shouldn't have to work 2 shifts and I'm treated with disrespect. But I still have an hour a day with my smartphone. Am I spending the hour a day with my smartphone watching other people have an argument? Am I spending that hour sharing my poetry? Am I spending that hour building something? Because if you can find something to be passionate about with a community of people, doors will begin to open. That doesn't mean you're going to get some fancy executive high-paid job, but doors in your soul will begin to open because you've discovered it's not up to the outside world for you to light up. You can light up even for 5 minutes a day by connecting with someone who feels alone, by saying something that needs to be said. And then when we get in it, we're more likely to encounter a flow state. And it's a flow state that makes us get to the next level, right? And when we feel like we are playing, we feel more alive. So what would you need to do to find a moment in your day where you could play? Maybe it's not at your day job, maybe it is. But where is the chance to play at some level? Because you don't get today over again. I asked 10,000 people around the world in 90 countries, tell me about the best job you ever had. And I gave them 14 choices about what made it the best job they ever had. And I included among the 14 choices things that bosses would pick, like I got paid a lot, I got to tell other people what to do, etc. But I then listed things that almost every single person picked. Almost every single person, for the best job they ever had in their whole life. I accomplished more than I thought I could. I was surrounded by people who encouraged me to do even more, right? And I did something that was difficult. When we have those 3 things in a job, we look forward to doing it again tomorrow. And different people need different things. Some people want to be completely alone on a desert island, but other people really benefit from having 2 or 3 people standing to their left and to their right. That the Hong Kong Cavaliers, the group of people, the 14 of us who are on this journey together, this cadre, this tribe, that gets me through the hard days. Because some days I'm going to help push them forward, some days they're going to help push me forward. And when we think about how lonely 7 billion people on Earth, there's almost no one who says, I'm fully connected. I don't need any more encouragement. I don't need any more people who are rooting for me. I'm good. Very few people could say that. So be one of those people, and they will then engage you in your circle and their circle, and it keeps becoming iterative. This is possible. Significance is real. To be in a place where we're respected, treated with dignity, where we make a change happen that we're proud of. You might even get paid for that work. But that, I think, is the purpose of our days. It makes a lot more sense to become passionate about what you do, as opposed to insisting that you do what you're passionate about. So there are people who are passionate about customer service who work in a coffee shop. There are people who are passionate about helping kids, who are Montessori teachers. But they became passionate after the gig showed up. So we are way more flexible than we imagine. And I don't think you're born with one thing and only one thing that you can be passionate about. I think we can choose it. ago. It's out there, it's on its own now. For me, it's what does it look like to have a puzzle, a problem, a page that's not finished, a project that doesn't quite work, a person in front of me who can go to the next level. Can I nudge this in a way that solves that problem? That's what I do every single day. And it's what I do if I'm training my puppy, and it's what I do if I'm standing at the checkout trying to figure out why there's such a long line and how they could fix it. All knowledge is self-knowledge in that if it's in a book, you don't know it yet. You know it once you do it. We become what we do. So what holds us back from doing it? I'm terrible at basketball. I could probably get better at basketball. I will not get better at basketball by reading about it or watching YouTube videos. I will only get better at basketball by shooting in a way that makes me realize I can shoot better than I used to, which means confronting incompetence, which means being willing to acknowledge that yesterday I'm not as good as I am today. People don't want to let go of that feeling, so they hold on to, I'm good, I don't have to get better. But if we can give people the foundation for them to feel like they can lean forward a little bit, then they lean forward, and when they lean forward, their posture changes, and then they experience something differently, and then they learn because they did something. Every single person who has been fortunate enough to be able to learn to walk has learned to walk by walking poorly. They take a step, they fall down. They take a step, they fall down. They take 2 steps, they fall down. They don't give up on walking at that point. They toddle their way through it. And your son is doing the same thing now with basketball and with reading and with everything else. That learning is about creating the conditions for people to teach themselves, not lecturing people on something that's in a book. We are born with fear. We're born with fear for a really good reason. You don't evolve as a successful species if you're not filled with fear. Evolution doesn't like change, external change, because it's risky. The frog, the wolf, they want everything tomorrow to be just like yesterday. No threats. We have that too, for good reason. That's one reason, for example, why many people don't like cilantro. Because if you don't eat cilantro until you're a teenager, it tastes like soap and it's horrible. Because we evolved to not like strong flavors we're not used to because they might be poison. Fear is real. The difference is fear of saber-toothed tigers, fear of lightning, fear of drowning is real for a good reason. Fear of someone not liking the talk you're giving, fear of someone not wanting to watch your video is not useful. Because no one is going to ever make something that everyone is going to like. That what we have to do is have the empathy to be able to say to the non-believers, it's not for you. To be able to say to the people who say it's not very good, I didn't make it for you. The people who love it, if there aren't any of those people, we didn't make a good thing. But if there are people who love it, that's who it's for. So we have to reserve the fear for where it belongs. I'm talking about the right fear for the right reason, and when it shows up for the wrong reason, it's pretending that it's warning us, but it's not. We're just hiding. So imposter syndrome is real. The sense that you feel like you're an imposter when you're doing something new, because you are an imposter. The only way to do important work is to do work you haven't done before. So you have no proof that you can do it. The proof will come from doing it. So I'm not talking about arrogance, and I'm not talking about showing up, insisting that you are always right. I'm saying, if you see someone drowning, you gotta jump in the water and try to save them. It's not a leap, it's a step. No one's asking you to go give a talk on the main stage at Davos. That's not what's on offer. What's on offer is, can you send a constructive email to one person? Can you make a 3-minute tutorial on video with your camera and share it with 4 of your customers who are stuck?
How to process grief in a way that makes us a stronger person. first thing is to follow this process of accepting pain, because whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, it's still pain. And sometimes you don't want to look at it, but you have to. Like, you have to just stop and be in pain. And as you start to develop this ability to have a relationship with your own pain and suffering, you can then start to consider all the people in the world who have the same pain. Right now, millions of people in this world are losing their loved ones. If you can open your heart to them, knowing that you know what they're going through, that change in perspective is not only going to bring you peace, just a change in perspective. Because when we're experiencing grief or pain, everything is focused here, like all the spotlights are on us. But when we start to think there are millions of people going through this, the intensity of that focus is going out. It's changed. Instead of feeling almost like a victim of the circumstances, you start to see that we're in an existence where people go through pain. And we can think, I know their pain because I've had it. And what happens is it starts to turn into compassion. Like, I know what they're going through. And in your mind's eye, in your imagination, you can see their grief. And I think sometimes it will make you cry, like you can have tears running down your cheeks, but deep in your heart, there's this peace, because that compassion is beautiful. Like, it's a connection with your fellow human, it's with other beings, Really, it's what makes us special, is that compassionate, loving nature. And when you connect to it, you're sort of connecting with the meaning of your life, because you're realizing who you really are as a person. And that can be so cathartic, so healing, so beautiful, and so humbling. Suffering, physical suffering, emotional suffering, all suffering is feeling. It's all feeling, whether it be a physical feeling or a mental feeling. It's your relationship with those feelings is kind of, in a way, everything. In the end, it's how you're responding to pain that is everything. And if you can maintain your determination whilst internally surrendering or accepting painful feelings, then you will be able to cultivate and protect the inner peace that becomes who you are in the end. The first thing is, whether it be a physical feeling or an emotional feeling, the first thing is we should try never to panic, but identify it as a feeling. That's the first thing. This is not physical, it's feeling. So it has no shape, no color, no form, no tactile sensation. It's almost not there. And yet it has so much power over us, but it's just a feeling. So we say, just as a storm has no power to destroy the sky, we should think this feeling has no power to destroy my mind. And that way we can accept. And then the next stage is to experience the feeling, investigate its nature. So we accept first, which means to welcome wholeheartedly this feeling or whatever's arising, having given up the idea that things should be anything other than the way they are. I welcome wholeheartedly whatever arises, having given up the idea that things should be anything other than the way they are. Then experience the feelings, which means effectively to just feel them without resisting, without going into any conflict with them. Just feel them. And you start to realize that feelings are like waves in the mind. and you just want to just be with them. You want to be in the misery. You want to be in the pain. You want to be in the emotional suffering. Just be there without any resistance, as if you're letting waves just move through you, like, and watch it, stay with it. And eventually, we'll realize that the feelings just mind, and they will dissolve, like waves dissolving back into the ocean. The feelings will dissolve into the mind. And when the feelings dissolve into the mind, they just leave us completely at peace. More peaceful, more happy than we were before the pain. And so the pain itself starts to create us, to form us into a peaceful person. And since suffering is an unavoidable part of human existence, then really this is what you have to do with it. It has to be used as the very mechanism or the very fuel that generates us as a strong, happy person. Once you can do that, then there's eventually, and of course we train, but eventually there will be nothing to fear. Because anything that we experience can be used and transformed into that path to happiness, or that feeling of being at home, feeling of refuge that we cultivate within us. Whatever we do in life, we still have to ensure to protect our own inner peace. I feel that has to come first, regardless of which walk of life you're in, because if we're not maintaining a peaceful mind, I'd like to call it refuge, inner refuge, even a sense of being at home within ourselves. Because if you can establish that, then you can establish that in any situation. And then yes, you can still follow your life's endeavor and the things that you have, the karma and what resonates with you, what you feel is the best thing that you can do for yourself and for the world, but you're doing it from a place of being at home. And then it doesn't kind of matter, like when the future comes and we've grown old and we can no longer do all the things that we used to do, it doesn't matter, because we were unifying the development of our home, our refuge, our peace, the real source of protection, not just for us, but for the people we love. We've always been developing it within us. So whether we're in Leeds or New York or Australia, or whether we can no longer travel, no longer do the things that we used to do, we are still completely content, because we combined with our entire life the development of our inner strength and peace.
One day out the blue, I just kind of said, I just sat down to myself and said, I'm doing things that 99% of people can't do. Pushing my body to limits that it's never been before, and I just love that buzz when you do something that like no other human can do, or not many humans can like do stuff. You just get that massive feeling, massive buzz, so.
Everything's focused on Worlds. I'm trying to be that bigger package and better package for Worlds 2021. So I should be going there with no weaknesses, no injuries, and like literally every event that I get thrown into, I should be able to kind of just do my best at. And yeah, World's Strongest Man 2021, I'm 100% going to like destroy everybody there. Like that's the biggest goal of the year so far.
I've achieved so much in the sport, and like how I've kind of gone through life. I'm sitting here the second strongest man in the world with autism and literally doing something I love. I've always listened to people and I've always said like, you've inspired me, or like, I've inspired this person, that person, but I've never ever said that I've inspired myself. You know, you can't just have it easy. You know, if it was easy, everyone would do it. I'm inspiring myself. I've not realised how great I've done in my life, living with autism. I won't let anything else get in my way. I live, breathe and die this sport. Proving people wrong is my biggest kind of adrenaline, you know. I love that, you know, especially because of with the autism thing. In school I used to get it all the time. You're never going to be this, you're never going to do that, you're never going to do that, and I've already kind of ticked 7, 8 boxes. So.
Winning Worlds would be, it's like the icing on cake, the cake in it. It's the biggest competition in strongman. You know, I would want to win it, but then as soon as I win it, I'd switch into that mode. I want to win it again, and then I want to win it again and again.
It's Tom Stolberg!
Yes! Scott, incredible from Tom Stolberg, and he knows he's done it. Now you know.
But here is the world's strongest man, 2 times world's strongest man, Scott.
So I think once I get my hands on it once, I'll get that addiction to keep wanting to win it and keep being the greatest of all time. And it'll just be, every year I'll just want to keep on winning it more and more and more. So yeah, I want to really, really, really win it. And yeah, it's going to be unbelievable when I do, 100%.
The most important thing we need to know, and especially young people, your existence is not an accident. It's not a mistake. It's not just another link in a chain of evolution. Your existence has a purpose. And if we don't have that, then we're in trouble. We can handle tragedy. We always have. We can handle pain. We always have. We can't handle senseless. That makes us crazy. People don't get depressed from pain or from tragedy. They get depressed from the belief that it happened for no reason. And if this can happen for no reason, then anything can happen, then life means nothing. And that kills us. We need to make sense of life.
Today's video is sponsored by Huel, and they've just sent me the new Black Edition. I'm going to dive into this later on in the video.
The need for purpose, the search for purpose, is universal. It's deeply embedded in the human system. It's not a philosophical question, it's an urgent, visceral question. If that's the case, that is the best proof that there is an intentional creator. If in fact we existed with no purpose, why do we keep looking for one? I mean, you can't be homesick if you never had a home. You can't be looking for your purpose if there is no purpose. I mean, some people maybe out of desperation, but everybody throughout all of history, the fact that we all search for a purpose means that there is a purpose. We're not all crazy. What does it mean to have a purpose? You know, I'm 30 years old and I wake up and I decide, you know what? I think my purpose is to become a doctor. Now, that's not your purpose, that's your choice. Purpose has to exist before you do. You don't make a car and then try to figure out what its purpose is. First you have a purpose, and then it drives you or guides you in producing that which fulfills the purpose. So when we say, what is my purpose? Doesn't mean I should sit back and make one up. It means, am I here for a purpose or am I not? It's not my ego that gives me purpose, direction, strength, confidence. It's my purpose. If God created me with a purpose, then there's no way I'm going to fail. And I don't need to have an ego to give me ambition. Because to fulfill a purpose is a natural, divine instinct, not ego instinct. Your existence is not an accident. It's not a mistake. It's not just another link in a chain of evolution. Your existence has a purpose. And if we don't have that, then we're in trouble. The human being is different, essentially different. The nature of a human being is that he's not content to be human. That's a radical difference from the other three. To be human, bare minimum definition, a human being, unlike the animal and unlike the vegetable, is not content to be human. So live and let live, that's good for animals, not for humans. Just leave me alone and I'm fine? No, I'm not. That's what drives us to find a purpose. Because to just be what I was born doesn't feel like an accomplishment. I was born a human, I died a human. What's the point? There's more to the human being, a lot more than we're given credit. And when we don't live up to that human definition, it's terribly frustrating. We feel shackled, we feel suffocated. We're not being human if we don't see a purpose and we don't accomplish something more than human. So should we be ambitious? Of course we should. But not selfishly. We should be ambitious enough to think that we could change the world. Turn it into something divine. And we can. Anxiety simply means I don't know why I'm here. That's all the anxiety you need. I don't even know why I'm here. How can I not be anxious? So anxious is not like fear. Fear means there's something scaring me. Anxiety is, you can't define it, you can't point a finger at it. It's just an overall feeling of aimlessness. And of course, that, you're in the middle of a forest with no map and you don't know where you're going. You're anxious. About what? About not knowing where you're going. So again, it's a bit of a compliment to the human being. If I don't know where I'm going, it disturbs me. It doesn't disturb a plant because it doesn't want to go anywhere. And it doesn't disturb an animal because he's perfectly content being an animal. But with the human being, there are people who are flippant about it and life, has no purpose. There's no meaning. Just enjoy, whatever. They're not sincere. Deep down inside, there's a hole that is unfillable. because human beings can't function that way. It's just bravado. They're cavalier about everything. Who cares? You know, like, you're here or whatever. You only come once, right? You only do. So just enjoy, do whatever you want, and don't worry about. I'm sure they're living on some substance. Because you can't.
Today's video, as always, was powered by Huel. Huel has been an absolute game changer for me and my life. I love drinking their Black Edition. They're ready to drink. It has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein, and slow release carbs. When I know that I can just reach into my bag and grab a bottle of Huel on the go, it has changed my life. And as I'm training for the world's heaviest marathon right now, where I lift 220 pounds of weight for 26.2 miles, and then I do 450 miles with 70 pounds on my back, Huel has been my go-to fuel. Don't just take my word for it. The hardest geezer who ran the length of Africa also downs a couple bottles of Huel whilst he's on his run. So if you want to join someone like Hardest Geezer, or if you've just got a busy life in general, Huel can be an absolute game changer. Head to the link in the description where you can find out more about Black Edition and other products of Huel, and some exclusive offers down below. Thank you to Huel for sponsoring the video.